Ladies and gents, welcome back to review time. It is a pleasure to have you here. Today we'll be discussing Heir of Fire, so grab your tea, grab your biscuits, and get comfy. Heir of Fire is a young adult high fantasy novel released in 2014 and written by author Sarah J. Maas. It is the third book in the Throne of Glass series, so it is preceded by Crown of Midnight and it is followed by Queen of Shadows. Just a little disclaimer here, this review / discussion will have spoilers in it, so if you don't want to be spoiled, I would click away now, but if you don't mind spoilers, continue. Also, another really quick disclaimer, my pronunciation of the names of characters and places is probably wrong, because, you know, Sarah J. Maas just loves to give us names that we have no idea how to pronounce. Without further ado, let's dive into this review. Heir of Fire follows the journey of Celaena Sardothian, who has been sent to the southern continent under orders to assassinate that continent's royal family. She quickly decides that she's not going to do this and instead spends her time getting drunk and suntanning on rooftops, until she meets the mysterious Rowan Whitethorn, who takes her to a Fae fortress where half-Fae train and study in order to gain approval to enter Queen Maeve's kingdom of Doranel. Once we get to the fortress, we are introduced to the Fae Queen Maeve, who it turns out is actually Celaena's aunt, but probably very distantly related, considering how old Maeve is. We then get the confirmation that Celaena's real name is in fact Aelin Galanthinius? Who knows? After this is confirmed, Aelin and Rowan then start a very grueling training process together, in which Aelin is trying to overcome her fear of her own power and gain a mastery over it. When they first meet, it's very clear that Aelin and Rowan don't like each other, and I found that quite funny, to be honest. As the plot progresses, we see Aelin gaining more and more control over her fire magic, and during the battle for Mistwood, she finally manages to smash through those last barriers of fear to become her own master. Aelin's control over her fire magic is proven even more during her final conflict with Queen Maeve, in which Aelin essentially engulfs the entire Fae city of Doranel with her fire, but she's controlling the fire to the point where it's not actually burning anyone or anything, it is simply just engulfing this entire city. I quite enjoyed the plot of Heir of Fire. It was different to the previous two books. The underlying themes of this whole story seem to be recovery, forgiveness, embracing your true self and your true name, which is definitely the case for Aelin, because she goes through a lot in order to be able to overcome that fear that she's built up within herself. There is this little side story going on which introduces us to the Valg demons, which I am assuming are going to be the antagonists for the rest of the series because they seem like quite a big deal. We do also jump back to the northern continent where Dorian and Chaol still are, so they also have their own little side stories going on as well. Dorian's is quite sad. It's quite heartbreaking what Dorian goes through in Heir of Fire. Chaol's he's just Chaol, isn't he? I felt that the overall pacing of the plot in Heir of Fire was definitely better than Throne of Glass and Crown of Midnight. Heir of Fire is also responsible for my inner filmmaker doing backflips and squealing, to be honest. So I'm now coming up with ways and strategies that I can take the Throne of Glass novel series and turn it into an on-screen adaptation. Watch this space because that video will be coming out shortly. Overall, I did actually enjoy the plot of Heir of Fire more than I've enjoyed the previous two. At times it did feel like one of those extended training montages you get in films, and that kind of slowed its overall pacing down. Once you get past the first half of the book, things then start to pick up and it becomes a bit more exciting, a bit more engaging, and just a bit more fun, really. So yeah, I liked this plot. It was alright. As we all know, I wasn't a massive fan of the world building in the first two books, but I actually quite enjoyed the world building in Heir of Fire. For the majority of this novel, we are essentially in the countryside / forest area because that's where this Fae fortress is. A lot of the world building is spent on constructing the way of life in this fortress and the social hierarchies amongst the different fae. So if you're full-blooded fae, you are higher on the social hierarchy than if you were a half-blooded fae. The awful term half-breed is used to describe half-blooded fae like Aelin, which instantly puts them in a lower position of power compared to the higher-blooded fae. We do also learn a little bit about Queen Maeve's capital city, Doranau. If you are half fae, you need to win the approval of one of her blood-sworn warriors or Maeve herself in order to gain access to the city and be allowed to live there. I came into this novel with these kind of preset expectations of fae will always stick together against the humans and humans will always stick together against the fae. But in this case, it seems that the fae are more judgmental of themselves and their kind than any other race. If you're not the best of the best and come packing loads of magic power, you're seen as lesser. It's harsh, but it builds this social hierarchy and it does build the whole economy of this city. Overall, the world building of Heir of Fire was so different to that of the first two novels that it really does feel like I'm in a completely separate world, but I'm not. It's the same world, it's just a different continent. But the two are so different that comparing them is near enough impossible. I find the southern continent way more interesting than the northern continent because it just felt like there was more time given to the world building and there was more time given to actually constructing what is around the characters, which made journeying with them all the more easier. We are in a forest type country area for the most part, so there's not really much going on and there's not really too much to describe, but I think that's why the world building worked so well, because it wasn't trying to overload you with all this information. It was just, here's the forest, here's the fortress, this is how it works, and you've got a little bit of side information coming in as well. And yeah, that was really nice. It made the overall reading experience a lot more enjoyable than the previous two books. The best character in this entire novel, and probably this entire series, has to be Manon Blackbeak. Manon Blackbeak just swooped into my life with her long blood red cloak, her silver hair, her iron nails. She is such an interesting character and I cannot wait to actually see her develop throughout the rest of the series, because I'm getting this feeling that Manon is going to be featured in the rest of the book series as well. And I just love the fact that she is this super cool chick with her band of warriors, the 13. She really stands out amongst all the other characters in this series so far. It's almost like Manon has breathed a breath of fresh air into this series, so I really hope that she's going to stay in the future novels because I enjoyed reading her chapters more than anything else in this book. Her story for me is the most interesting out of all of them, and I love the fact that these are witches that ride wyverns. That is all I wanted. It does very much seem like the witches were never supposed to be emotionally connected to their wyverns, but I think that that is definitely something that's going to develop throughout this series. There are going to be emotional connections between these witches and their wyverns, so I'm really looking forward to seeing that develop a bit more. I just need more Manon Blackbeak in my life because she was so entertaining and she kept me on the edge of my seat every time we had a chapter with her. I really don't like her grandmother though. What is up with Manon's grandmother, honestly? Like, does she have to be such a hard ass all the time? Is it just me, or are Aelin and Selena two totally different people? When I was reading Selena in Throne of Glass and Crown of Midnight, I really enjoyed her. She was funny, she was smart-mouthed, she was sassy, she didn't really take shit from anyone, and that was really entertaining. She offered the comic relief. Aelin, on the other hand, seems to be so weighed down by her past and her regrets, Her grief especially seems to be something that is massively holding her back, and her own fear of herself. I get the sense that Aelin is very scared of herself, whereas Celaena was always presented with this very cocky, confident attitude. In all honesty, it kind of threw me off a little bit because I know that they are the same person, they're the same character, it's just they're two totally different personalities, and it was very different reading our main girl as Aelin in this book because she's not anything like she was in the first two. She's still, you know, she's still got her sass, she's still got her smart mouth, and she drops a couple of one-line jokes here and there, but for the most part she seems so consumed by her grief and her sorrow. Her story in Heir of Fire is actually quite sad, and we do get a few flashbacks from when she was a child, find out a little bit about her history, which has kind of made it even sadder. When I first met Rowan in Heir of Fire, I found him really obnoxious and annoying and full of himself. I started to like him a little bit more in the second half of the book because that's when he slows down on his whole aggressive, aggro nature and actually takes the time to look at Aelin for who she really is and talk to her about, you know, what's gone on in her past, because this girl's been through a lot. I was expecting a mental breakdown from her at some point. I'm quite surprised we didn't have it sooner. Queen Maeve, I don't trust this chick. There are also other side characters that you meet at the Fortress Mistwood. One of my favorites is probably Luca. He works in the kitchens where Aelin also works, so they have not like an overly friendly relationship, but this sort of we work together so we're gonna get along with each other kind of relationship. Chaos still annoys the hell out of me. I'm not really going to talk much about the writing at this point. It's a series, it's the same writing style, it's the same author. The writing is very similar to that of the previous two novels. It's full of these ridiculous M-dashes that interrupt the whole pacing. First half of the book was very slow due to the way that it was written. Second half is a little bit better. What I did enjoy though was the action points within this story are actually written really well. I've come across a load of novels before where action is written but you have no idea what is actually going on. In Heir of Fire, I knew exactly what was going on during these action sequences because they were actually written really well. And that concludes my thoughts on Heir of Fire, but I really want to know yours, so drop them in the comments below. I gave Heir of Fire a 3 out of 5 stars, and my full Goodreads review is linked in the description. Thank you so much for watching, ladies and gents. Stay safe, and I will catch you in my next one. Bye.